upstate New York, the Canadian border. No matter where you are or how long your day's been, I want to thank you for joining us. And as Panina said today, I'll introduce you a little bit to Educause, to badging, and discuss some of the lessons we've learned in launching our badging program. We only have 30 minutes to cover this agenda, plus time for questions, so let's go ahead and get started. And I can see we're synced up again. I'm on slide 3. So I hope you've heard of Educause, but just in case you haven't, please allow me to tell you a little bit about us. We are a nonprofit association for IT professionals. We help those who lead and manage and use information technology to shape strategic IT decisions at every level within higher education and in K12 as well. And on slide 5, there are a few data points to help you put Educause in perspective. We serve about 1,800 educational institutions, primarily higher education, but some K12 schools as well, associations, organizations, government agencies, along with about 300 corporations. Institutions or organizations subscribe to join Educause, but individuals create and maintain personal profiles. And our professional community extends beyond North America to 50 countries around the world and tens of thousands of active profiles in our network. The other data point I want to mention is that the 5,000 figure on the bottom of that slide 5, in the time since we launched our first badging pilot, we've issued over 5,000 badges. And so I'm really pleased to tell you a little bit about what we've learned from that. The thing that is probably most important for you to know about Educause, though, is that we research, publish, and provide extensive professional development opportunities in several key areas. I'm going to be sharing some links with Panina. Hopefully you will also be able to see them, or if not, we will provide them to you after the session. But we do a lot of IT management and leadership development, enterprise IT, cybersecurity, and especially for this audience, I'd like you to know we have an extensive offerings in teaching and learning. And for that, there are two sort of arms or branches or sub-brands with Educause that I hope you will become aware of if you aren't already. One is the Educause Learning Initiative. I know ELI, as it is known, has many friends in Kenya already. There are some great publications and an annual meeting, which includes a virtual meeting that happens in February of each year. And in fact, the proposal, call for proposals is open through the 18th of August for that meeting. So if you think you'd like to present virtually, this is a great opportunity. The other part of Educause I want to make sure you're aware of is called the Next Generation Learning Challenges, or NGLC. And nextgenlearning.org has amazing resources for K12 as well as higher education, and a really rich blog with all kinds of materials that are so relevant to improving college readiness and accelerating educational innovation through technology. So let me tell you a little bit about badging, because it is relatively new and not everybody is particularly familiar with it. So on slide 7, digital badge, you can think of it as a multifaceted micro-credential. Each badge contains information that describes the achievement or the accomplishment, and earning a badge requires meeting specified criteria and supplying evidence. Digital badges may be shared on social media and displayed on digital portfolios. They are a highly visible way to document your incremental lifelong learning. And on slide 8, badges are a new way to signal professional development for our community. And if you're involved in badging as an adult, they signal to others, to your colleagues, to your supervisor, perhaps your staff, could be your students, maybe a future employer, that you are a lifelong learner. They can help you demonstrate progression in your learning or in your career. So we wanted to take the pulse of this crowd and just find out from you in this first poll how many have earned a digital badge. And maybe you're not sure, and there's an option for that as well.
So I'm going to launch the poll that Sondra just mentioned. I believe you're able now to view the poll, particularly on that asking you to indicate how many badges you have earned. So kindly take a few seconds and use your mouse to click on the answer that is appropriate for you. We'll take a minute and then I'll be able to share the results.
So we have two polls back to back. The first is, have you earned a digital badge? And then we'll ask you how many badges you have earned, if you have earned a digital badge.
All right, so a few more seconds and we'll be closing this. If you haven't voted, please do. All right, so everyone's in and excellent. Thank you, everyone. And so I'm going to share the results, so you should be able to see that in just a moment coming up.
Okay, so, 25% are not sure, and that's very, very common response early in badging. And 38 yes and 38 no. Thank you so much. That helps us to gauge the audience a little bit. For those who have earned a badge, that 38% who have, do you know how many badges you've earned?
Okay, so on to the next poll. So that's the next poll. How many badges have you earned, for those who indicated that you already have some? A few more seconds and we'll see what the results are. All right, so I'll be closing this now and then we'll be able to share the results with you. Just give me a minute.
Wow, 17% have earned more than 10. That is impressive. And 17% in that 6 to 10 category. I am really pleased to see that, and would be really interested to know more about the kinds of badges you're earning. Let's go ahead and talk about the types of associations and organizations and institutions that are doing badging, because at least from my perspective here in the U.S., it's really taking hold. K12 has actually been a little bit slower to pick it up and compared to higher education, but they're gaining ground fast. And these links I can make available to you after the presentation if you don't have access immediately. The Aurora Public Schools in Colorado are rolling out a program this month to 40,000 students. And this is a really interesting example because students can earn badges at school, in the community, and also at their part-time jobs, which is quite common. And so the program is designed to help students tell a more complete story through the badges they earn about what they know and what they can do. You can see other examples of K12 badging and explore those later, but let me also show you a few from higher education on the next slide. And this is actually very much an incomplete list for higher education, and it's but an exciting list of opportunities. Badges in higher education really run the gamut. Some are associated with coursework, with academic work. Others are co-curricular or maybe extracurricular. Still others are used for faculty development or staff development. I know of several programs that are focusing on IT staff development. And there are so many others in addition to these, Arizona State University and UC Davis and University of Central Florida and Yale and Purdue and Indiana and many, many, many others. So it's an exciting, dynamic time. And even beyond higher education, there are others doing badging that have become popular in museum world and in nonprofit associations and with even like the City of Learning program where you're exploring a city. There's just so many opportunities to use badges to motivate people and recognize achievements and accomplishment. So if we could take one more quick poll, how many of you have developed or plan to implement a badging program? Where are you at in your thinking about badging, I guess, would be another way of saying that.
I'm launching that poll for you to tell us how you've developed or how you plan to implement a badging program. So kindly respond. Excellent. Everyone has voted. Thank you for your participation. I'm closing that now, and I'll be sharing that in a second. It should show up on your screen now.
Okay, terrific. So I can see that we have some badging enthusiasts in the group, and perhaps a few that are yet to remain convinced, and that's perfectly normal and good to know. As we move forward, I will move now to our next section. So we'll just unpack, for those who are a little less familiar with badging, what is in a badge. You might like to know sort of what's beneath the surface of a badge. And my friend Veronica Diaz kindly allowed me to share a screenshot of her badge profile. So when you get a chance, Panina, we will talk a little bit about the details of a badge that you can find through access to the actual artifact itself, the badge itself.
Excellent. I've advanced, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm not able to see.
Right. Maybe I'm not seeing it, so I'll just keep talking. You tell me if I get too far ahead of you.
It's on. 1 second, I'll get that up for you.
No problem. So you'll see in Veronica's Credly profile a little bit of information about her, and then the badges. There are several badges that she has publicly displayed. This snapshot was taken a while ago. I'm sure there are many more there now, but this is the way it looks to the public. And in this particular slide that's showing right now, you see that we've drilled into one particular badge, and that is the presenter badge. So each badge carries information embedded in it. At a glance, you can see who has issued the badge and something about the accomplishment. In this case, Educause issued Veronica a badge for a conference presentation in 2014. I should say and make note that there's real work required for earning any Educause badge, and when you click into it, you find those details. And they're outlined in the description, in the criteria, and the evidence. There's a lot of variety around evidence. It can go much deeper, or it can be based on a link. It could be a video that the badge earner has created. It could be documents, a blog post, or something else. It's really quite flexible. And you'll also see something within the badge about the issuer. So that's really important, because you know that the credibility for the badge is only as good as the agency behind it, the agency that has issued it. In fact, if you go to the Educause website and look at the current issue of Educause Review Online, which is, I'll share these links with Panina, and we'll get them out to you at some other point, but the current issue includes a short video by Dan Hickey called Badging in a Learner-Centered Context that discusses the evidence factor in a badge, among other things. So it's really cool. I hope you'll check it out. All badges are not created equal, even within a single badge program. And so it's really important that you get the metadata correct and thorough, so people know what went into earning that badge. Now, in the next slide, you can see we go a step deeper. We go into Veronica's LinkedIn profile. And this is another important and relatively new development, where you can take your badge, instead of just sending it to LinkedIn and appearing in your newsfeed momentarily, or sending it to Twitter or whatever, you can embed it in your credentials within your LinkedIn profile, within the certifications. And so that's another way of using your badges to display publicly something about the work that you're doing, the ongoing learning, and the ongoing development in your education or your profession. The next slide shows you a snapshot, just a few samples of the badges that we will award this year at Educause, and you can see the link for our badging program there if you want to learn more about the program itself. Badging has been a really exciting platform for our community because badges can be used to recognize professional engagement and achievements. As a nonprofit association of higher education professionals, we award badges in 5 categories that are closely aligned with our professional development and community engagement portfolios. So in these sample badges, you'll see 5 very distinct containers or outlines or shapes, you might say, of the badges. From the upper left, those are the community service badges, a few of them. In the upper right, communications badges. Below those, on the far right, are leadership award badges, and then the subject matter development badges. You'll see one example of what we call a stacked badge in the subject matter group. And then over on the far left, the leadership development badges. Those are awarded for the Educause Institute programs that I mentioned earlier. Each of our badges carries our brand or sub-brand, as it may be. So you'll see that some of these are branded for ELI, the Educause Learning Initiative. I mentioned the teaching and learning segment of Educause. Or maybe co-branded with a partner. You'll see a couple that have been co-branded between ELI and the University of Central Florida for a MOOC that we developed and partnered with them on. Each of our badges displays the title and the year of issue. We use pretty simple artwork to help distinguish among achievements. But when you click into the badge, you get to those more descriptive details that are unique to each that I mentioned earlier, the metadata. Now, you might be wondering, well, what does this really mean? How does this work? Here's, on the next slide, you'll see a feasible example of a community member. Cheryl is a senior leader at a large institution, and so she's advanced in her career. She's become an active member of the community for a number of years, and this year she's completing her term as faculty for an Educause Institute program, so she earned the Thought Leader Badge for that work, which is intense. She served on a program committee, and in helping to build that program, she completed more than 25 proposal reviews, so she earned the committee member badge along with the Proposal Reviewer Plus badge. So these community service badges speak to her professional commitment and her engaged service. Now, she's an expert with enterprise systems, and she regularly presents to share her knowledge, so you'll see a couple of presentation badges. However, she's not an expert in analytics, and she knew she needed to develop more depth in that area, so at her annual conference last year, she attended a pre-conference seminar in analytics and earned a badge for that work. This badge, coupled with the 2 that she received from ELI for online seminars in analytics, that trio helps to demonstrate her commitment to lifelong learning. So she's setting a great example for her staff and her peers in the process of earning and displaying these badges. Now, let's talk just a little bit about the lessons that we've learned in launching our badging program at Educause. And as I mentioned, we've awarded more than 5,000 badges since launching our first pilot in 2013. You can imagine with that kind of volume, you do learn something. And so it's been a very exciting and interesting and educational journey. The first lesson that we've learned is that you should badge what you have. When you focus on what you do, you facilitate your program launch. Rather than simultaneously trying to stand up new programming or products or content in order to badge something, develop your foundational badge program on existing opportunities. Of course, you want to structure it so that you have some flexibility to grow, but the more you start with what you have, the less risk you will assume up front. Our badging program is based on a strong professional development portfolio, which includes conferences and events, leadership development programs, and online courses, among other things. But that's why it was easiest and most successful to start there. Another lesson that we learned is badge with partners if you can. Opportunities to develop badges don't need to be strictly internal to your organization. You can consider ways of leveraging relationships that you have. Keep in mind, of course, that you want your badge program to support your program objectives, your organizational mission, and every badge carries your brand, and so it needs to work for you in this partnership. I mentioned the MOOC that is co-branded, the badge that's co-branded with the University of Central Florida. That's a win-win for us because it's on blended learning design, and so it really effectively serves our mission for building the profession and our teaching and learning community. The next lesson I would share is a really important reminder to educate and communicate. It seems so obvious, but it's really easy to underestimate how important these factors are. Building a badging program was kind of like setting up this big tent and inviting the whole community over. We needed them to talk to us and to each other about badging. The program planning has to have a really robust communication plans, and you have to educate internally and externally and across time. Like, it doesn't stop. The education and communication efforts continue because not everybody gets badging initially, and depending on your target population and your internal resources that you have to educate and communicate, this can be a bit of a lift. It's really hard for me to imagine program success being evident otherwise in these early days of badging. At Educause, we use nearly every channel at our disposal, including focus groups and advisory committees, surveys and polls, so we had a sense for what the community was looking for in the badge program. We use webinars and conference presentations and publications to try to educate about what we were doing and why and how the community could take advantage of it. We developed an online resource library, which is freely available to you with curated resources. We had a marketing plan, and we used social media to help the community get on board. And so these efforts to communicate and educate, they preceded the first badge issue by months and months, and still continue today. The next lesson is that program planning is challenging. I don't know if this photo resonates with you, but last summer there was this kind of crazy fundraising gimmick here in the U.S. that was called the Ice Bucket Challenge, and it involved dumping 5 gallons of ice and icy cold water over your own head, which is a terrifying thought. Well, badge program planning is more challenging by far. You have to carefully consider your stakeholders and engage your target audience, and that's a lot more difficult in some ways than actually executing on the program and issuing the badge. In our project, in our program, we relied heavily upon a standard project management in launching the program. We developed a project charter, a project plan. We had a highly functional team of internal stakeholders who helped to plan and design and develop our badge constellation, which is the collection of badges that we were going to offer. And the program, and that part took over 6 months leading up to our first badge issue. So by comparison, actually executing the badge and executing the plan and issuing the badges was relatively easy by comparison. And the final lesson I'd like to share with you this morning is that badge management is kind of messy. There are many options for badge earners to display their badge publicly, but there's not a real simple solution to manage that across platforms in the current badge ecosystem. Some recipients, especially in these early days, may be sort of stymied by what to do with a badge, especially early on. And it really is, the onus is really on you as the badge earner to accept and display and present your badges in a way that tell the story you want to tell. I do think that the management issue will resolve in the not too distant future, but that's the current situation. So it's important for you to know, as you're thinking about your program, that even for those members in your community who are really eager to earn badges, they may miss opportunities. Their badge issue email may be caught by spam filters, maybe they don't see it, or and therefore they fail to accept the badge, or they may accept the badge, but then they don't quite know what to do with it then, and so they don't display it on LinkedIn or in their digital portfolio, or maybe they do display it, but they still don't really leverage it for, you know, their own purposes. So in our case, with our community, that might be a performance review, or it might be a job interview. So this messiness that makes it a little bit difficult for the badge earner to navigate in these early days is another reason why the education and communication piece is so important. So that's a really fast whirlwind sort of tour of some of the lessons we've learned about badging or Educause. And I have many more that I can share and have written about and can share those resources with you as well. But I'm curious, after kind of hearing about our experience and what we've challenges we've been facing, if you're more or less likely to implement a badge program than you were a few minutes ago when we asked the question about your plans.
I'm going to call up the poll for you to respond. Kindly take a minute and respond to that poll as well. The question is, after this presentation, how likely are you to explore or implement a badge program?
And Panina, while they're completing that poll, I have popped a bunch of links that weren't included on the slide deck into the chat area. And so when you have a chance, I don't know how to make those available to people.
What I could do is I could email these right after the session to everyone.
That would be great. Yeah. Thank you so much. These are in reference to some of the resources that are freely available that I mentioned earlier in the presentation.
Okay. I'll be sharing these resources with you right after the conference by email, so be on the lookout for an email from me. This is Panina. And I'm about to close this now. I think about 90% of you have voted, so yeah, I think that's enough time, so I'm closing it, and I'll be sharing that with you, the result.
So I'm encouraged to see that several of you are more likely to consider a badge program than you might have been, you know, a half hour ago or an hour ago. I really, really want to encourage you to explore the slide resources for higher education, K12 and others who are doing badging, because there's such a wide variety of examples and opportunities in using this new platform and technology to reach your community. So I think we have some time for questions, and I'm happy to take them if you have any.
All right. So questions, I'm going to check just in case any questions are coming. So kindly, I'm going to close this screen sharing for a minute, and while I scan questions. So I'll ask a question while people are considering what questions they have. Sondra, what's the kind of response that you have received on the positive side of your user community? So thank you for sharing some of the challenges that you've faced on the development side. But what kind of response are you getting from the community in terms of how, let's say, potential employers or current employers are reacting to those who are earning badges? And while Sondra is answering that question, kindly go ahead and type in your questions. On the right-hand side of your screen, there is sort of a little chat box where with questions. And if you could kindly type your question under that, I will be able to see it, and Sondra can answer it. Sondra, go ahead.
Well, that's a great question, Panina. And one of the most interesting reactions that we've gotten, and encouraging reactions that we've gotten, is hearing fairly regularly from folks who've earned a badge or 2 or 3, and they get in touch with us to say, well, I was involved in this way, or I did this work at this earlier point in time before we did badging, and are you going to be, you know, offering badges for that stuff that, you know, happened in 2013? Or 2014, but it wasn't part of the initial program rollout. So what that says to us is that the community really sees the value of presenting their work this way. The other thing that has happened, we track the data on the badges in various ways, but one of the most useful signals that we have is that the majority of folks who earn badges from Educause and share them publicly do so through LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is a really important social network, professional network for our community. And currently, something like 89% of badges that Educause issues and are displayed publicly are displayed there. And that has increased dramatically. When we first launched the program, that was at 73% perhaps. I can't remember exactly, but it's been a really good signal for us that the community, it matters to the community to share these badges in their professional network circles.
Thank you very much, Sondra. The other question that's come in is around how you organize when you're planning the badges and the program planning around it. Had you already pre-established the competencies around which you're going to award the badges, and have those competencies still sort of remained, or have they changed as you advance the program?
That's an excellent question. There was a pilot in 2013, and so there were some preliminary competencies associated with those badges. But what we learned through the pilot was that the more investment people had in earning the badge, the more valuable the badge was. And that might seem obvious, but it wasn't necessarily obvious initially because badging was so new and we weren't quite sure what would resonate or how. So in developing the program, we took a completely fresh start, and of course we were expanding upon the badge offerings in the program versus the pilot, very dramatically. It was a huge increase in the number of badges and types of badges we would offer. But we quickly determined that we would not issue badges just for showing up or, basically seat time, so to speak, but there would be specific criteria and evidence required of engagement and active participation, not just showing up. So we started from scratch, and I have a very elaborate spreadsheet. So every badge is detailed out by the criteria and evidence required.
Thank you very much for that. We have another question from Munjiko, so probably one or two more questions, and then we will have to sign off in a few minutes. So Wanjiko Wanjaroge asks us about sensitizing children and parents about sexual abuse as an area that they would want to address. What's your advice on this, and how would that relate to badging? In a particular area that is probably a bit, sensitive, what kind of advice do you have?
Well, my advice would be to take a close look at some of those youth program links, because some of those programs that are designed for youth are very. I don't know that I've seen one specifically that's associated with that topic. But there are some programs where it's about, for instance, youth health and fitness habits, and so you can do some education and awareness, and when you offer badges incrementally, there's a motivational factor to continue to earn and collect the package of badges, and so in that sense, it could be a way of, helping people to follow through an entire sequence of learning opportunities, educational opportunities.
Thank you, Sondra. I think just to add to what you had said earlier about understanding your community, I'll probably bring it here as well. If the program is designed for the children or for youth or for parents, and really understanding that target audience and what they would also appreciate in terms of their competencies being recognized.
That's an excellent point, yes.
All right, so we will advance. That's the questions we have in for now. We'll advance to the next set of resources and a little bit of information about the conference itself. So I think you're seeing my screen now. So Sandra, you prepared some resources. Do you want to say something about them?
Oh, sure. Yeah. A couple, especially the ones at the bottom. Let me point you to those first. I mentioned that we have a library of resources freely available. That's the Educause Badging Resource Library at the bottom, and then the program link itself if you want to know more about how our program is framed. These others on the top, the four on the top, are publications or presentations that we've done in the last year, and so hopefully, if you're in that category of thinking about a badging program or getting ready to launch one, you'll find some of these useful, I think. And I certainly welcome your email or contact if you have questions that weren't addressed this morning.
Excellent. Thank you, Sondra, for an excellent presentation. I'm check my screen.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So in this particular time, I would like to specifically thank Sondra on behalf of the organizers of the eLearning Innovations Conference. Sondra, as you know, this is the virtual conference, but for you and for others who may consider attending the live event, we're going to showcase again your presentation so that it's available to as many people as possible, as digital badging is somewhat new and quite also informative for the audience that will be attending live. So for a minute, I'm going to let the audience know about the upcoming events that as they relate to the rest of the planned conference events. We have a walk, I know this is showing September 12th, and I will apologize. It should be September 19th. Again, the walk is on September 19th. It's a Saturday happening in Karura Forest in Nairobi. If you'd like to register, kindly contact the KICD or simply come to the Karura Forest meeting there. So the next thing I would like to point attention to are the pre-conference workshops. We have 2 days, September 28th and 29th, and there are multiple topics. I will be offering 2 particular workshops, one on e-mentoring and another one on digital branding and executive leadership. So just in case that's of interest to you, we have also another one on e-wellness. So for those who are looking at how mobile education and e-learning generally is affecting health education and wellness in general. So that's another conference workshop. And last but not least, for those who are not as familiar with tools for e-learning, how to get started with course design, we have a particular workshop on that. So then leading on to the main events, which will be September 30th to October the 2nd, that's 3 days. Again, this is the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development happening for 3 days. On October 1st, in particular, we have a showcase day targeting youth innovators. And as you can know, you may already know that there are lots and lots of exciting opportunities and applications that our youth are building regarding mobile education. And so I welcome you to those events. And in terms of opportunities, we are accepting speakers still. And so if you would like to be considered as a speaker, I'd ask you to visit the website and learn more about how you can submit a proposal. We are in the final rounds of considering speakers, so it's something that I would say that if you're interested, act on it right away. We also have an opportunity for session chairs who can assist in some of the leadership tasks during the conference, chairing the sessions and ensuring that we have a great learning and networking opportunity with each other. We have opportunity for you to host a similar webinar such as this one which Sondra just presented. So every Thursday for the next 2 months in August and September, you could host a webinar at your organization and make it accessible to as many people as you can So these are free events and obviously at no cost to you other than your time. And so if that's a consideration, send us a note and we will organize alongside with you. And obviously, if you're looking towards marketing and getting your services or products to a broad audience of e-learning enthusiasts, so this is the right another opportunity for you to exhibit. So with that said, I wanted to make sure that you understand that the reason, the key theme for 2015 is changing lives and examining how mobile education is changing lives in terms of careers, in terms of how across all the professions. And so these are the key themes. And as you can see, it's quite a diverse range of tracks. And so you may consider any one of those as you submit your abstract, or even as you consider attending the program as a delegate. These are the key tracks that will be under discussion. And I just want to leave you with a quick links, and you will be getting this recording after this session is over. And so reference these links for more information and to be able to contact us or to submit your abstract. Connect with us also on LinkedIn and on Twitter and Facebook. We would love to hear from you as we continue organizing and planning for these virtual events or the other main events, and even throughout the year. So kindly connect with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, and we look forward to welcoming you to the next session. We have a webinar next Thursday, exact same time. I urge you to go ahead and register for that. The link is available on the website, and I'll be able to circulate another invitation in the next few days so that you can register for next Thursday's session, which is in particular on open education resources. And that's with Achana Takran from India. So we are excited about hosting a global list of speakers who are experienced in this field, and hopefully these are resources that you will appreciate. With that said, I want to say thank you again from the organizers. I thank you, Sondra, for being a part of this session today and speaking to us about your experiences with digital badging. I welcome you to future events. And once again, thank you, everyone, and look forward to seeing you in the future sessions. Have a good evening and a good morning to those of us who are on time.
Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful conference.
Thank you, Sondra. Thank you, everyone, and bye for now.